Let's compare Duolingo and the IELTS test. There are many students who are asking the question about IELTS or Duolingo. Which test is better for you? Which test takes more time? Really, which test will give me a higher score? These questions are real questions that I hear from students regularly. Hi, I'm Jerry. I work with Global Connection ESL, and I also work for a university in Oregon in the United States. I'm so happy that you joined today in this live. And as you join, if you have questions or comments, go ahead and put those into the chat. We'll be happy to take some time to look at those toward the end of the presentation. Do you have plans for taking the Duo English test? Do you have plans for taking the IELTS English test? Why did you decide for Duolingo or IELTS? What was your reasoning? Let's take a look and compare the two tests and look at some of the reasons that students choose Duolingo or choose IELTS. So in this presentation, I want to ask a few questions that I commonly hear students ask. And the first question is, which test is longer? Well, I can tell you that the Duolingo test takes about 1 hour to take the test. However, the IELTS test takes about 2 hours and around 45 minutes to take the test. What's the difference? Well, both tests are checking your listening, reading, speaking, and writing skills. However, the Duolingo test is much shorter. It's all based in your computer, and there is a very short speaking portion, only 10 minutes toward the end. IELTS, however, has a much longer test format. And you start with the listening test where you listen for 30 minutes to audio recordings and you answer questions, and then you have 10 more minutes to write your answers from your notes to your answer sheet. The second part of IELTS is the reading test, and you get 60 minutes, 1 hour to read 3 passages. And after 60 minutes, then you get the writing test. The writing test is also 60 minutes or 1 hour, and you need to write on 2 tasks. Task 1 is where you describe or report something that you see and explain from the diagram or chart. And task 2 is where you respond to a question prompt. And then the fourth part of the IELTS test is your speaking test. And you'll meet with a real person and talk for about 11 to 14 minutes and 3 different sections of the test. So if you'd like to know more about those parts of the IELTS test, I have quite a few videos about each part on this YouTube channel. I hope you'll check it out and learn from them. And I hope they'll make you stronger when you prepare for the IELTS test. Duolingo, on the other hand, you can finish in about 1 hour. And the test is not broken up into listening, speaking, reading, and writing. It's kind of built together except for the speaking part, which comes at the end. So, which test is longer? Clearly, the IELTS test is longer at about 2 hours and 45 minutes, whereas Duolingo is only about an hour. Okay, the next question I want to ask is, which test is more expensive? These tests are very important tests for so many reasons. In fact, many students will take this test to help them apply to an English-speaking university somewhere around the world. Or perhaps even in your own home country, you are required to take an English test before you can start university. So, how much does it cost? The Duolingo test is, in American dollars, $49. The IELTS test in American dollars is just under $250. And that test for the IELTS cost, the cost for this test, it changes according to which country you're in, but it's approximately or around $250 if you're measuring in US American dollars. Obviously, the Duolingo test is much cheaper, and the IELTS test is 5 times more expensive. So if you are not sponsored by your government or not sponsored by a company, you have to pay for this from your own pocket, then you might consider taking the Duolingo test. It's considerably cheaper. All right, so the next question to ask is, how long does it take to get your results for these tests? This is a great question because students want to know what their score was. After you take a test, you want to know as soon as possible, don't you? If you think so, then let me know. How long did it take for you when you took a test to get your results? According to the Duolingo website, they provide test results in 2 days after you finish the test. 2 days. That's 2 days you need to wait. The IELTS test, when it's given at the IELTS testing centers around the world, many of them are closed because of the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, but many of them are actually opening up more and more. Whenever you take a test at the testing center, generally students get their results after about 2 weeks. So that's a big difference, 2 days or 2 weeks. Just another comment about the results for IELTS. As you know, IELTS has produced a test called the IELTS indicator. And this is temporary. It's a solution for students to take the IELTS test while they are quarantined into homes and not allowed to go to testing centers because many IELTS testing centers are closed. They are not receiving students. Even though you still need to take the test, you can't go to many of these IELTS testing centers. And so the IELTS indicator is one way to take the IELTS test by computer. It has been reported to me that those results come back to students in about 1 week. So that's much faster, but the security is more questionable for the IELTS indicator. So you might consider that. Okay, so 2 days for the Duolingo test and about 2 weeks for the IELTS results. Okay, if you are going to use a Duolingo test or IELTS test, you want to know what you're going to get from it. So many students are using these test scores to apply to universities around the world. So Duolingo is accepted in an increasing number of universities around the world. Right now, reports tell us that there are more than 1,000 universities around the world that accept the Duolingo test score as a measure of your English proficiency. IELTS, on the other hand, has a very high and strong reputation. And IELTS scores are accepted by universities around the world more than 10,000, maybe even more than 15,000. The last count I saw was almost 14,000 universities around the world. IELTS has a very high and strong reputation among universities as a trustworthy English proficiency test. Duolingo, on the other hand, is just gaining some popularity because of the lower price and because of the coronavirus pandemic. However, many universities don't trust Duolingo so much because there is a question about the security of the test. Duolingo does work hard to measure the security of the test, and you will find if you take the Duolingo that you do need to follow some specific rules when you take the test. However, the IELTS test is very strict and very secure because you are in person with a test proctor and they are watching you the whole time. So it's very difficult to cheat on an IELTS test. Also, IELTS is accepted at nearly 15,000 universities around the world, but Getting into university is not the only reason to take an IELTS test. As you know, IELTS has two different types of tests. One is an academic IELTS test, and the other is the general academic. That's the general IELTS test. And the general IELTS test is for immigration purposes. So not only can you get admission into a university, you also can interact with immigration and perhaps move to an English-speaking country and work for a company. So the access that you get with IELTS is tremendously wide compared to Duolingo. Duolingo isn't necessarily providing immigration tests for students to immigrate. Okay, so how do you compare the score results for the Duolingo and the IELTS test? Well, the Duolingo test can start from 0 and go all the way up to 160 points. So that's kind of a strange range, but 0 to 160 points. IELTS tests, on the other hand, are measured in band scores, and they also start from 0, but go up to a 9.0. A 9.0 is a perfect score on the test, and most universities want you to get at least a 6.0 or a 6.5 on the IELTS to start undergraduate studies. So for Duolingo, if you were to get about a 75 to 80, then that would be about the same as a 5.0 in IELTS. If you get 95 to 100, then that's about the same as a 6.0. So for Duolingo, you want to get probably 100 to have the minimum skill to get into a university. If you need to get a 6.5 on IELTS, then that would be equivalent to 105 to about 110 for Duolingo. And to be on the safe side, if you really want to get a strong, stable score, then you always would shoot for 7.0 for IELTS, and that would be about 115 to 120 on Duolingo. So if you get 120 points on Duolingo out of the total possible 160 points, you have a very strong score. And universities which accept Duolingo would probably consider your score a strong one. So that's how the test scores are compared if you look at Duolingo and if you look at IELTS. So the big question that many students ask me is, Jerry, I need to take the test. Duolingo or IELTS? Which one is easier? This is an important question, but it's a question that comes from the student's mind. So I want to speak to that, because if you are asking about which test is easier, I don't want to give you the answer that the teacher would say. The teacher will always say, make your English as strong as possible and take the harder test. But from the student's viewpoint, which test is easier is a very important question. So let me comment on a few points when we compare Duolingo and IELTS. First of all, the test structure itself. You know that the test structure for IELTS has those 4 parts: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And they're separated, and you start and stop for each one. For the Duolingo test, you start your test, and you need 60 minutes set aside. You'll begin and you'll finish in 60 minutes, the total test, even for the speaking part with the examiner. So the test structure is easier for Duolingo because it's all built into one structure. Another part that's very important for students is spelling. Spelling is an issue that is graded very strictly for both tests. Many students struggle with spelling, especially if your language is different than an ABC style alphabet. IELTS does not give you any exception when you make a spelling mistake. If you spell it wrong, then the answer is wrong. Duolingo is also very strict about spelling, because on the Duolingo test, you need to fill in the missing letters for words. Now, I actually think that spelling is easier on Duolingo because the Duolingo test gives you the number of letters that you need because of the little boxes. You know how many letters are missing. IELTS does not do that. You need to just remember the spelling of the word. Duolingo gives you the number of boxes for the number of letters in the word. If you struggle with decisiveness and spelling, this could be a problem for you. But in general, if you know how many letters there are, it can help you in spelling. Another question about the difference is the test fatigue, or how tired you get when you're taking Duolingo or IELTS. Well, in most cases with IELTS, because it's 2 hours and about 45 minutes long, most cases you'll take listening, reading, and writing right after each other. And if you get the chance to take the speaking test, you can do that on the same day. There's also a chance that you would do the speaking part on a different day. That's okay with the IELTS test examiners. So you will have a long day of testing. If you can do all 4 parts for the IELTS, it's long, 2 hours and 45 minutes. And that makes you tired after that much time. However, Duolingo is just 1 hour long, and most people can manage to stay focused and work hard for 1 hour. You will be a little tired, but not as tired as 2 hours and 45 minutes. So in this case, I think Duolingo is a little easier. Now, the important question is about your English language proficiency. Which test is easier for English? Now, to be fair, both tests are designed by English teachers who do their very best to put together a good test. But they're not the same style of test. And so Duolingo does focus a little bit more on spelling words, finding the words that are correct for the sentence, and not necessarily writing just general responses as long and hard as the IELTS. However, you do need to understand English very well for both tests. So sometimes students tell me they think that the English is easier for Duolingo, but I'm going to keep this one as a tie. Both Duolingo and IELTS are supposed to be built with a strong English base so that they have the same level of difficulty. And in my own university, there are professors who have looked at these 2 tests, and they decide in the admissions department what score is about the same for both tests, so that they do not let a student come in who cannot handle the English language proficiency level. Okay, so if we compare Duolingo and IELTS, then we find that there are many parts of the Duolingo test that students would find better. It's shorter, it's cheaper, you get your results much faster, and there are parts of it that you could consider it an easier test. So which is better for you? If you want to go to a university that does not accept Duolingo, then you probably want to choose IELTS or perhaps TOEFL. Those 2 tests are so widely accepted around the world. However, if the university you're trying to attend accepts Duolingo tests too, then you might consider Duolingo as a good option. So those are comparisons for Duolingo and IELTS. I hope that this will help you make a good choice as you prepare for your future education or immigration if you're going for the IELTS general test. All right. Thank you very much for watching today. I really hope that this information will help you in your future planning. And I hope that all the videos on this YouTube channel will benefit you for your future. Take a look at the others when you get a chance and build up your English skills. For both of these tests, improving your English is significantly important. If you are working hard on just improving your English skills in general, you can follow the videos on this channel, or you can also follow the videos on my other YouTube channel. It's called Learn English with Mr. Jerry. I hope both of them will help build your English proficiency and make you stronger as an English speaker. It will really benefit your future in so many ways. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to this channel and let me know if there are questions that you have about Duolingo or about IELTS, and I'll be happy to help you as soon as I can. Thanks so much for joining today's live session, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.